It's not scary at all going last, I'd just like to share with the group. Not scary at all.
What's that button there?
The well-used button. Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for your ears tonight. Thank you so much, Pauli, for having me here. And ladies and gentlemen, 42 slides in 7 minutes, so seatbelts on. As my intro mentioned, I come from theatre. This is an image of Louis Vuitton 150th birthday party tour when Kelly Rowland didn't turn up to rehearsals, so I had to be her. So two of the most patient men I've ever met in my life and the most uncomfortable 2.5 minutes, and a really good reminder of what I'm not good at, so that's good. But yeah, now I kind of work for council. So the strapline for Panuku is shaping spaces for Aucklanders to love. And I think I'm brave enough to say on camera that I realise they didn't know when they made this, but I think my superpower is love. When I was 8, I said to my mum, sometimes I think I'm so happy I could love the whole world, platonically. I was 8. But this is kind of why I get up in the morning, so I'm very lucky to do it, and this is a little bit about what I do for a day job. I'm going to try and not stand in your way, good people of the front row. Good on you for sitting in the front row, I say. So this is the Wynyard Quarter. We're in it at the moment, so we're kind of down that away, but this is it back in 2007 and before, when it was really, really good for fishing and for, boaty boats, and there's Team New Zealand, ironically up just about where they are now, and a really good place for the dominant species on Earth, the private car. And then this is it a bit later. So this is what I've been able to be a part of making, which is this wonderful new waterfront for Auckland. But yeah, pretty special day job, which isn't a bad thing to get to do. This drawing was one of the very few instructions we were given at the beginning of placemaking for the waterfront. Do it a bit like that. But for a theatre person, that was okay, because this was about energy. How do you build a welcome at Karanga Plaza that builds all the way down to a place like Silo Park? And this early definition of placemaking, placemaking consciously introduces strategies of enticement, encouragement and reinforcement sufficient to ensure that strong patterns of public use take hold and gradually possess a specific physical setting. In other words, make use of $140 million worth of spend. Or in other words, this is from a movie called The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces by the grandfather of placemaking, William White. Pretty basic stuff. But we were making cities that were not good for humans. And so this man started us off on this 40, 50-year journey. And yeah, been my very great privilege to get to work with incredible humans on the making of places like Silo Park. I wanted to tell you a little story from day one. This is opening day, and we always have a painted piano out there. This nice young man turns up on his bike, and we go, oh, nuts, he's going to tag it or break it or something. And he sits down and starts playing. And he's a young engineer who's working on the wharves, and he's a self-taught musician, and I'm just totally acknowledging you wonderful people in the work you're doing. He just starts to play, and then suddenly that's happened, and people are with him making music. And this is my first boss who always told me, let the place speak for itself. So how we gently offer, step back, that's what placemaking has been for me. So polar bears. This is the polar bear from the Auckland Zoo from when I was a child. In fact, we can't get the real photo because the real polar bear had a green bum where it had gone mouldy. And this polar bear was suffering from a thing called zoochosis, which happens to animals when they're in an environment which is terribly unhealthy for them. They go off their food, they become terribly antisocial, they stop having sex. Are you allowed to say sex? So I guess that's good. We're animals, so what happens when you put yourself in an environment like Fanshawe Street? How do you feel? And what's your more basic brain telling you? So this is the stuff I've learned about placemaking in the last decade or so, is this is the levels we're working on, is what are the places we build telling humans in terms of how they should be. So Manukau Civic Square, everybody. Amazing. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, a place we've been able to work for the last sort of 3 years, and pretty groovy place and full of incredible people that are with us, helping us do the work. And I need to acknowledge Ole Maiava. This slide is his work. Lots of text on it, but the one I want to draw your attention to is what we call transformation with a little t. So when we go into a place like Manukau, which has got a huge amount of really big buildings, awesome big roads, we're trying to go, hang on a second, what about human scale? What about the people that want to be in this place? And we're thinking about lots of stuff all in this list, all these incredible people, about how we just create those, as Stuart Niven said at the beginning, regular patterns of enticement and attachment. Because as we well know, this is where I'm going to do all my cardio today, by the way, we haven't got a lot of time now. I think we've got about 11 years to think about how we're living before we're going to maybe be facing some pretty catastrophic problems. So we could do things differently, and we could do them differently pretty quickly. And yeah, as far as I know, you all come from this planet. Hands up if no. But yeah, so this kind of idea of indigeneity and what that means for us as human beings now, when you may be hundreds of years and hundreds of boats away from where you actually come from. And in Auckland, Tamaki Makaurau, we've made a pledge to honour... Be my friend, Pointer. Oh, it really doesn't want to... There we go. So, as we know, Te Reo Māori only really exists in this country, and we have Indigenous people that we have a treaty with, which is a really valuable, special thing. And so we have this commitment with the Auckland Plan to kind of honour that. And then, as placemakers, that's made us go, hang on, what knowledge did we used to have that we maybe don't have anymore, that we maybe need to pick up again? And so we're incredibly lucky at Panuku to be able to work with an amazing group of mana whenua guides who are helping us bring mātauranga Māori into our placemaking in a meaningful and real way. We haven't got it right yet. We're still working through it. There's lots of very patient, kind people. This is a very wordy slide, but the one in the middle is what I want you all to think about. But that idea, and I know aroha means much more than love, but this kind of concept of how we build stuff and really do it with our hearts is of great interest to me as a placemaker for Tāmaki. And as you can see, yeah, that one. So my own journey to share with you tonight is that I know I can't reasonably stand up here and do my pepeha for you, because I've grown up alongside the Waitemata, but it's not my waters. And I've grown up alongside Rangitoto, but it's not my mountain. So where is my place? Where do I come from? And where do I know, as my friend Lucy says, where my bones come from? And so this thinking about maybe finding out where my family is from, where our history is from, I'm trying to cover, there we go, woohoo! Yeah, this kind of idea of what whakapapa means, and how do we make places with a sense of whakapapa. This is stuff we're working through at the moment at Panuku. These are the Callanish stones in Lewis, off the coast of Scotland. They are about 7,000 years old, I think. Well, sorry, they're probably way older than that, but some humans did that to them around about 7,000 years ago. And so I sent myself to Scotland and found out that my name means footpath. Really good way of confusing an elderly gentleman. What's your name, love? Frith. I'm sorry. Anyway, so that was kind of a pilgrimage of sorts. I went back a couple of years ago and went discovering things. And yeah, there's Scottish weather for you, everybody. That's great. I just did that as a joke. Yeah, lovely. Meaningful, fantastic. More meaning. The slide is meaningful. But yeah, this is kind of the brave part of sharing my story. Is I land in Skye, and I have a very strange response in Skye. I suddenly feel ridiculously excited and overly emotional, and suddenly I know, as Lucy says, where my bones are from. I have heritage to Scotland, and I'm standing in places going, I get it, I want to be buried here, I understand. So I could come home and look at mana whenua and go, I'm so sorry, I haven't understood this conversation to date. Now I vaguely do. I understand what it is to have taken you away from your land. My family arrived in this country because of clearances in Scotland, and then did it to a bunch of other people. So my big question is, how do we stop the hurt? At what point do we stop displacing people? At what point do we say, you can stay? And so we make public spaces and they give us clues about who we are and who we can be in that place. And some of those clues are very subtle and some of them are awfully subliminal. And not all of them are very good. And when you run a waterfront with $300 million super yachts, this often can be the experience of some people. So we're trying to think into, we're saying we welcome everybody, but do we really mean that with all of our offerings? All of us in this room are 99.9% genetically similar. We are 90% genetically similar to a bonobo chimp, and we are 50% genetically similar to bananas. So this whole concept that we're quite different and we're already, not being nice to each other because we're all whatever, separate, not actually genetically true. So the opportunity is to think a little bit more joined up and to be a little bit more connected, as somebody wisely said this evening, and maybe work together. And so back to that L word and what it would really mean if we really, really did it. And kind of this notion of who we are as humans. And I think love is one of the big things that actually makes us want to get up in the morning and be human together. It feels really naughty to put up a quote from The Matrix. Woo. Take the red pill, everybody. But yeah, so my definition of placemaking is now different. And please can I highly recommend Sharon Blackie to everybody in this room. She's an amazing author. Her book is called If Women Rose Rooted, which is an awkward title if you live in New Zealand. In Scotland, it means something else. Placemaking, a process of remembering the history and associations of a place, but also imagining our own place in its future. And so that's what I've been allowed to do in Silo Park. This is an image of my grandfather, Bain McGlashan. There's a man pointing, some man in charge of a place, pointing, man in a hat. Anyway, this is a model of the Waitemata Harbour that he made back when he was an engineer for the District Harbour Board. And for ages I've been using it as a metaphor for placemaking. And I wrote this in the middle of the night, so I hope it makes sense. For years I've been saying off the back of this slide that we need to be finding Bain McGlashan and his granddaughter. But now I know we need to go much deeper, to dig under names like Wynyard, under the voices we can hear, to listen for who and what is quiet, people and place. And most of all, to listen for our connection to each other and to place, and with love. Thank you very much.